Okay, as with any army book, the first thing you'll look at is the battle traits. These are the abilities that are going to apply to your army when you're building a kind of pure army. So if you're building a whole Kharadron Overlords army, the battle traits will apply to your army. Obviously, because you're excited about Kharadron Overlords, you're excited about the boats. And the first thing that we're going to look at is exactly how you get in and out of the boats with your units. There are some sub-factions here which we're going to go through in a minute, but first thing we're going to talk about sky fleets, and let's just talk about them in order. In the Kharadron Overlords army, transport vessels can embark units as described below. So they can basically get in, and they can get off. Okay. During deployment, you can set them up inside the boat. Super simple. Each boat tells you how many people it can put inside of it. As an example, the Ironclad can put 22 inside of it. Okay. So during deployment, you can set it up inside. Sweet. If you're not doing that in deployment, then what you can do, as long as you're wholly within 3 inches of the boat at the during your movement phase, so it can either be at the beginning of your movement phase or at the end of your movement phase, so you could move towards the boat and then embark, then you have to be wholly within 3 inches of the boat and then you can get in. You can move the boat beforehand and then get in. That's allowed, okay? But you can't move the boat and then get out. That isn't allowed. Well, it's not allowed unless there are some rules that say you can do something different, but that's how it works. When you're inside the boat, embark units are still being treated as on the battlefield, so if something affects, let's say there's an AoE damage spell, it's going to affect the boat and everything inside the boat. AoE means area of effect. Range and visibility to and from models in an embarked unit are instead measured to and from the transport vessel. So let's say all the units inside can shoot out, as an example, right? Because they're inside the boat. Then what you do is you measure from the base of the boat versus somewhere else, okay? Really, really easy. Okay, and if you want to shoot someone who's inside the boat, you measure to the boat. Very simple. Embark units are in cover. So if you're in... Oh, also, by the way, if you're inside the boat, you count as flying. Okay, that's an important part. Okay, embark units are in cover, which means you're going to get +1 save. In addition, you get -1 to hit rolls for attacks that target embarked units. Okay, pretty good, pretty good. So it's effectively the garrison rules, but they haven't said it's a garrison. Okay, models in an embarked unit cannot contest objectives. That's actually quite sad, but opinion stuff isn't really necessary here. The boats themselves do actually count for holding objectives. The Ironclad, for example, counts as 5. Embarked units cannot move. However, when a transport vessel finishes any type of move, all units embarked in it are considered to have made the same type of move. So if a boat, for instance, moves and then adds a run roll, so that's called a run move, then everything inside it has counted as having made a run move. Okay, if you made a normal move, no problem. If you made a retreat move, everything inside the boat is counted as having made a retreat move. Super simple. And then you've got disembarking. In your movement phase, if a friendly... And I kind of described this already, but effectively, it's on the screen there, so you can read it in detail. But you can't move the boat and then everyone get out. But before the boat moves, you can get a unit out wholly within 3 inches of the boat, and then you can make a normal move. So your dwarfs normally move about 4 inches. So that means they've got like that 7-inch move, which is pretty nice. Quite like that. If your transport vessel is destroyed before a movement from play, roll a dice for each. Basically, if you've got 10 dudes in there, you roll 10 dice. If you roll any ones, one of those models is slain, which is good. And it's written in a way so that if you've got like 10 dudes and an admiral, you roll 11 dice, and then if you roll a 1, you don't have to kill the admiral. You don't roll for him independently. Let me just double check that. If a friendly transport vessel was destroyed before a movement from play, roll a number of dice equal to the number of models embarked in it. Yes. You choose. So you don't have to just slay your admiral because you rolled a 1. Okay, so love that. When a unit disembarks, if a model cannot be set up wholly within 3 inches of transport in which it's embarked, more than 3 inches from all enemy units. So effectively, you can never disembark into combat. In which it's embarked and more than 3 inches from all enemy units, it is slain. Yeah. So you can never disembark into combat unless you were already in combat at the start of the phase. You can't do any of those things. You also can't embark while in combat. Just to be clear. In addition, in the movement phase, if a friendly Skyfarer unit finishes a move wholly within 3 inches of a friendly transport vessel, and both those units are more than 3 inches from all enemy units, so you can't embark in it. Super simple, very easy. So try and TLDR this again, just very quickly. You got a boat. Get wholly within 3 inches of it, and you can move beforehand, get in the boat. Nice. Get out of the boat. The boat can't move, and then you get out the boat, and then you can move. Okay? Love it. Okay? So that's the first part. Now on to the rest of the battle trait. Okay, so the next part of your allegiance abilities, the battle traits, we've got 2 parts. We've got Stick to the Code, and we've got Iron Sky command abilities. So Stick to the Code is effectively your main allegiance abilities. And this is, there are 3 categories, an article, an amendment, and a footnote. Okay, and you choose one of each of those when you build your army list. So you choose 1 article, 1 amendment, and 1 footnote when you create your army list. Okay, however, we're going to talk about in a minute, there's a way that you can change some of those bits mid-game. Okay, so let's go through the articles. We've got Honor is Everything. And when a friendly Kharadron Overlords unit receives a rally command, then it happens on a 4 and not a 6. Okay, pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. You've got Master of the Skies, add 2 inches to the move characteristic of friendly sky vessels. Pretty good. Might be really important. Feel like it's not as important as a rally. Like in heal in Kharadron Overlords, it's pretty massive. They've never really been able to do that much before, so that's huge. And then you've got Settle the Grudges. After deployment, but before the first battle round begins, pick 1 enemy unit and add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Kharadron Overlord units. Now, that's pretty massive because +1 to wound on all of your guns, all of your combats from 1 unit is really good into Death Star units. And if you watch the most recent Stat Center show, I mean, depends when you're watching this, but we've been talking about Death Stars and building kind of like big blocks of Varangard or Squig Hoppers, or if you go up against Archeons or Nagashis, not so much, but still, then getting +1 to wound for your whole army into something that's meant to be very, very survivable is actually really good. So those are the articles. Then you got amendments. So again, you choose one of these. I think you're going to see Honor is either the 4 at Rally or the +1 to wound chosen, but I could be wrong. Amendments, you've got 3. Always take what you are owed. At the start of your hero phase, pick 1 Arkanaut Company, and they're going to count as 2 for holding objectives instead of 1 until the start of your next hero phase. Now, that's going to be really important if you're trying to, like, just grab an objective of your opponent, which they weren't expecting. It's only going to work on Arkanaut Company. We've kind of taken a quick look at the Arkanaut Company profile. They're 100 points for 10. They've got 4 up save and only got 1 wound each, so they aren't what I would necessarily describe as like a brawler unit. But maybe there's some ways to change that around. But right now, they don't look like they necessarily are going to be super vital for holding objectives. But when they're inside a boat, they also can't hold objectives, so toughie. Then you got Prosecute Wars with all haste. Once per turn in your movement phase, when you make a run roll for a Kharadron Overlords unit, you can roll 2d6 instead of a single dice. Could be quite useful, again, for kind of like snatching an objective off your opponent that they weren't expecting, which is kind of like, I kind of like that because both of these feel like they're playing right into how the army would play. The little thieves, and well, I guess they're not thieves, they're merchants, sorry, pirates. And finally, Trust Your Guns. Once per turn in your shooting phase, you can reroll 1 hit roll for an attack made by a friendly Kharadron Overlords unit. So don't forget, the run 2d6 is once per turn, and then the Trust Your Guns is also once per turn. And at the start of your hero phase, you can pick 1 friendly Arkanaut Company until the next start of your hero phase. So all of these apply every single turn. So it's not once per battle. Yeah, so this is going to happen each turn. So you've got some real flexibility. You could choose multiple Arkanaut units. Well, you could choose 1 Arkanaut unit 1 turn, 1 Arkanaut unit the next turn. You could run 2d6 with that unit, then run 2d6 with that unit, or you can reroll hit rolls of 1. Feels like when you've got a lot of damage, especially on something, let's say, like an Ironclad, you're probably going to choose something like Trust Your Guns, because being able to reroll one of those hits, especially if they don't hit super well, makes them more effective and probably something you're going to do. And it's constant, right? If you take an Ironclad, every turn you're going to be able to reroll one of the hits on that unit. Feels like that's the one. Then we've got footnotes. There's no reward without risk. Once per battle in your charge phase, you can attempt a charge with 1 friendly Kharadron Overlords unit within 18 inches and roll 3d6. Really good if you've got a combat army, and especially as we know that we can, in a minute, we're going to talk about a command ability where you can get a unit out having moved. So you get a unit out of a boat having moved, and then being able to charge 3d6. Pretty decent. There's no trading with some people. Once per battle at the end of the enemy shooting phase, pick a friendly Skyfarer unit, which is going to be your infantry, which aren't that survivable. That was targeted by any shooting attacks in that phase. That unit can immediately shoot. This is very, very specific. You don't necessarily want any of your units to be shot if possible. And then shooting back is cool. Would have kind of loved to have seen that put on one of the big boats, actually. Would have liked to have seen that on Sky Vessel, if I'm honest. And then without our ships, we are naught once per battle. At the start of any phase, pick one friendly Sky Vessel. This unit can receive up to 2 commands. And that's going to be massive, because when we talk about the commands that we're about to look at now, I feel like that's the one you're going to take a lot, right? So we've got 3 command abilities. We've got Combat Landing, which is you can use this command ability at the end of your movement phase. The unit that receives the command must be a friendly transport vessel. Any units embarked in that transport vessel can immediately disembark. A unit that disembarks in that way cannot move in the same turn, but they can still charge and shoot. So it's a really nice way of like moving the boat up the board, getting all of the guys out, maybe doing a bunch of multiple charges, maybe using that footnote, there's no reward, without risk, and doing a 3d6 charge. Then you've got Fly High. You can use this command ability at the end of your movement phase. That unit receives the command must be a friendly sky vessel more than 3 inches from all enemy units. Remove it from the board and then put it into deep strike. So basically it has to land 9 inches away from the enemy and 1 inch away from terrain. And then you've got Disengage. You can use this command ability in your movement phase. Your unit receives that command must be a friendly sky vessel unit that has not made a move in that phase. That unit can, and any units embarked in it can retreat and still shoot later in the same turn. So retreat, shoot, retreat, shoot. And what's really nice, if you take the footnote where you can receive 2 commands, is you get the retreat, and then, so you can retreat using Disengage and then Fly High. And so teleport away and then still shoot in the same turn. So it's got some real survivability. You can only do that once per battle. Now, the last thing we should talk about is the Codewright. So that's the new miniature, the guy with all the books. He's got 5 wounds and a 3-up armor save, and points-wise, the Codewright, I think, is very good. Hold on. He's 90 points, yeah. So he's kind of like a classic with what Games Workshop are doing at the minute. They're releasing a bunch of like foot characters that are quintessential for kind of playing the army. You've seen that with the Squig Boss as an example for Gits, and then they're basically building an entire Battletome around that model. So the Codewright has got a couple of little bits, which we'll talk about in detail. He's got advisory role. Number 1, he's very survivable. 5 wounds on a 3-up save. Yeah, but his advisory role is, at the start of your hero phase, if this unit is within 6 inches of another friendly Kharadron Overlords hero, roll 2 dice. For each 4+, you receive a command point. Obviously, inside a boat, he's going to count as being near a hero, because it said that they're on the battlefield. So then that's going to be 2 4+, get a command point, really useful. Loads of command abilities useful in this army. And then you've got, I'll think you'll find as an ability. You can carry out the following heroic action with this unit instead of any other heroic action. So it's a heroic action, you don't need CP, happen in either turn. You carry out with it. Roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. However, on a 2 to 3, you can pick a new footnote to apply to your army until the end of the battle. On a 4+, you can pick a new footnote and or a new amendment to apply to your army, but you can't choose one that you've previously had. And so the Codewright is going to be able to let you kind of cycle. You can do without our ships we are naught, yeah, which is once per battle, and then you can move over to doing one of the other footnotes if you roll the 4-up, and you can keep trying to do it every turn, this heroic action. So you can cycle through the footnotes and the amendments. So kind of feels like he's very necessary in the army, which I think is really fun, right? And you could just do some really cool stuff with that, cycling through, but you can't choose an amendment or a footnote that you've previously used, right? Yeah, it's a great question. So that's what they do. Those are your core allegiance abilities, and the Codewright is going to play really importantly into that. Okay, let's move on. Something that we've just noticed, me in the chat, because I'm doing this live with the chat, all hail the chat, with the Codewright, is that if you took 2 Codewrights and stood them next to each other or put them in a boat together, because you don't lose any of these abilities when you're inside a boat, which is good, then the advisory role, where if you're within 6 inches of another friendly Kharadron Overlords unit, you can roll 2 dice. On a 4+, you receive a command point. You could do that twice, if that makes sense. I think you could have 6 Codewrights and roll 12 dice. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with that many CP, but fun is what you're going to have, and whimsy, which is also something we really appreciate. Okay, let's look at the sub-faction. So you've built your army, you already know what your footnotes and everything does. You get to choose a sub-faction when you write your army list. You can't change it every turn. This is just for people who are new and they might not know. There are 5, 6 sub-factions. Let me double check. there are 6 subfactions. So Barrack Nar is kind of like the main one. Yeah, it's like the place that can make the biggest amount of sky ships available. And in this, you make Thunderer's battle line. At the start of your hero phase, roll a dice for each friendly Barrack Nar hero on the battlefield, including any that are embarked on a 4+, they get a command point. So, going back to our meme that we've already done, we've got 6 Codewrights, and then we've done this, and then we've used the heroic action to get a CP. We got 19 command points. Can we turn them into victory points? No. Do we want to have 19 command points for a turn? Yes. What can we do with them? Not much. But it's still available as an option, which is pretty fun. So lots of CP. Barrack Zilfin, and in this, frigates become battle line. And this is the one that famously always used a bottle, throw a bottle in. You can pick 1 additional Great Endrinwork, which we'll cover in a minute, for your army. So 2 Great Endrinworks. There are Endrinworks for each of the 3 types of boat, and so you get to pick 1 additional one. Don't forget, because it's what we call a unique enhancement. That means that when you write your army list, you get a command trait, you get an artifact, and you also will get a free Great Endrinwork because it's a unique enhancement. So you get one of those. Stormcast, for example, get a holy command that they get to choose. Okay, and then you got Barrack Zon. City of the Sun. This, you make Skywardens battle line. Skywardens are 130 points for a unit of 3. They've got 2 wounds on a 4-up save. They've got 3 attacks each, but if you take the champ, you get an extra 1. So we maxed out a unit earlier, which is pretty good, of 9, and we'll talk about that in a second. Barrack Zon, they're the kind of fighting guys. And you add 1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons if they've charged. So if you do take a battle line unit of Skywardens, which are kind of the most fighting unit that you've got, but it's all Skyfarer units, so it's going to apply to the infantry. Any of the infantry it's going to apply to. If you take the most kind of combaty version of Skywardens that we can find so far, and again, we haven't looked at any of the other abilities at the minute, we can get up to 28 attacks, hitting on 2s and 2s that are rend 1 and damage 2. And then you have the ability on a 2+ to make the opponent retreat away. So there's some potential melee options here, and we've already seen that you can potentially do a 3d6 charge as well, one with one of the footnotes. So some real interesting stuff. Okay, so our last 3 subfactions, we've got Barrack Urbaz. And this allows you to pick 1 additional article for your army. You cannot pick an article your army already has. So now you can have the +1 to wound big mega unit for your whole army, and also the 4-up rally. This feels like a really good one. It really does. Then you've got Barrack Mornar, the City of Shadow. I really like this. I think probably it won't see a lot of play, but maybe it will. It's kind of good. Roll a dice each time an enemy model issues a command within 12 inches of a friendly Barrack Mornar unit. On a 5+, that command is not received. The command ability still counts as having been used, and the command point that was spent is lost. Now, building an army around something that is only a 5+ is pretty lame, and not very reliable. But I kind of like it, and it's kind of interesting, legitimately kind of interesting. And it's every Barrack Mornar unit. And it's 12 inches, so you could really kind of shut down some stuff. I think it's quite interesting. I like it. And then you've got Barrack Thring. Okay, and this is really interesting because priests are back, baby. It's nice to see the priests are getting back together. Let's go. We've got Honor the Gods just in case. And this is allied Dwarden priests know the following prayer in addition. Rune of Ancestral Guidance is a prayer that has an answer value of 3 and a range of 16 inches. If answered, pick 1 friendly Arkanaut Company or Grundstok Thunderer's unit, wholly within range, and start the next hero phase. Unmodified hit rolls of a 6 for attacks made by missile weapons by that unit cause a number of mortal wounds equal to the damage. So it's like Cruel Boys with View. If the damage profile is 1 on the gun, then you roll a 6, you'll do 1 mortal wound. But if the damage profile is a 3, you roll a 6, you'll do 3 mortal wounds. That's how it works. That's pretty interesting. Does require you to bring in an ally, and Curse is probably better in a lot of different ways. Is Curse better? No, it's not. Curse isn't better. This is definitely better than Curse. And it's got longer range. Okay, no, I've changed my mind. This is definitely better. which is really interesting. And then talking about Arkanaut Companies and Grundstok Thunderers, we're going to go through Thunderers. I think we could talk about Thunderers now if you really want to. They've got 2 wounds each, but they've got a 3-up armor save, which is great. Like, very, very good. And just to quickly look at the points, they're 130 points for 5. And when they're in Barrack Nar, which is the barrack we just talked... when they're in Barrack Nar, they become Battle Line. So in Barrack Thring, so the one that we just talked about where you could do mortals on 6s, you can only ever reinforce them up to a unit of 10 for the Thunderers. But Thunderers have got 2 wounds each, and they've got a 3-up armor save, right? And they move 4 inches, okay? Now, you can basically equip all of them with an Aether shot rifle, which is 2 shots each at 18 inches, 3s and 4s, no rend damage 1. Okay? And so you're going to be firing, and the champion gets +2 shots to that. So you'd be firing from a unit of 5 for 135 points. You'd be shooting 12 shots at 18 inches, which are 3s and 4s, rend 1, damage 1. Rend seems to be a bit of an issue. Thank you, by the way, for talking about Curse can't be taken because it's a coalition. But if you want to, instead of having just all Aether shot rifles, you can start having different weapons in addition. Their Bravery 7 and their Standard Bearer makes them Bravery 8, which is pretty cool. So, the first one we've got is if you take the Fug, the Aetheric Fumigators, choking Fug is the rule, attacks made with the Aetheric Fuginator automatically hit, and it's D6 shots, which automatically hit, and they're 3s, but no rend and damage 1. However, they've also got a thing that at the end of the combat phase, if you're within 3 inches of a unit with a Fug, then on a 2+, you do take D3 mortal wounds. If you have multiple Fugs in a unit, it isn't going to work, unfortunately, and you're not going to get to roll like 2 or 3 dice to try and do mortal wounds, and instead it'll always be 1. But maybe if you take multiple small units of Thunderers and people get into combat with, let's say, a boat, so you put the Thunderers in the boat, and then you could roll 1 for each unit, which is pretty cool, because that could stack up in the mortal wounds. Then you've got explosive shells, and this is for the mortar, and the mortar has got an 18-inch range, 3s and 3s, but again, no rend. And you roll a number of dice equal to the models in the unit, but to a maximum of 5, which is lame, if I'm honest, right? Which is lame. To a maximum of 5, and then it's 3s and 3s, no rend damage 1. But if you did, let's say, double reinforce a unit so that you would have 3 mortars, because you can take 1 per 5, then you could get up to 15 shots, which is a lot of shots. A lot of shots that you could do. You got suppressing fire as a special rule. And this is if you shoot all of your... It's a long sentence, but if you shoot all of your shots at a unit, and then you roll 2d6 above their bravery plus the number of hits you did, then they've got -1 to hit because they're suppressed. It's a really long and complicated rule to get -1 to hit on a unit, but there you go. And then you've got the drill bill. Each time this unit fights, once all of its attacks have been resolved, if this unit includes a gunnery sergeant, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches, and on a 5+, the enemy suffers 1 mortal wound, which is interesting. They're a cheap unit, 135 points. They are got 3-up armor save, which is pretty legit. Love that, love that. They've got 2 wounds each, so you're looking at 10 wounds on 3-up armor save for 135 points. They're no good in combat, but they're going to do quite a few shots, but rend seems to be the issue. The one that I like the most is the Aether Cannon. So the Aether Cannon is 1 shot, but it's 3s and 2s, rend 2, damage 3. So if you double reinforce a unit, then you could have 3 Aether Cannons in your army. And because they hit on 3s, you can do the all-out attack, obviously. So it's going to be 2s and 2s, rend 2, damage 3. That's pretty nice. It's a pretty nice profile, especially when you add in all the other shots you're going to do. That one's going to punch through some armor and do some big damage, I think. That's quite nice. I quite like that. I quite like that. You've got a lot of CP probably in this army, so you're going to be able to do that quite a few times. The loadout for these is going to be interesting. I feel like people are going to discuss the loadout a lot. There's going to be like some deep dives on the loadout on what you're going to build with your Thunderers. So if you're thinking to get into it right now, that's going to be a toughie. But I would say Aether Cannons, yes. Aether Shot Rifle, yes, right now. As much as I love the Fuginator, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to make it into a list for me, because if people are near your Thunderers, it's probably bad times, but they've got 3-up armor saves, so you can make them fairly survivable. It's kind of interesting, maybe use them as an anvil, get charged in, do some mortal wounds. Obviously, you've got standard shoot, so you've got Unleash Hell. So a lot of shots to Unleash Hell with, which I kind of love. Yeah, interesting unit. Okay, so those are the sub-factions, just to kind of round that out again. Just to talk about the sub-factions. We got, of the three, pick additional article for your army. It's pretty good. Barak Mornar on a 5+, you can't issue command abilities. Pretty great. And then obviously you've got the prayer coming in. Very interesting. Love to know what your thoughts are. Next up are the command traits. So you'll pick a general in your army and you have a command trait. You can have a battalion to have another... Oh, no, battalion... You can never double up on a command trait, can you? I don't think so. I don't think you can. Anyway, so these are the command traits. You've got a grudge bearer, okay? After the deployment, but before the start of the first battle round, pick one enemy hero. Double the damage inflicted by each successful attack made with the general's weapons that target that hero. So some key points here. Number one is targeting a hero, which is like, meh. It's kind of okay, kind of not. But it doesn't say melee attacks. So while the Admiral is damage 3, going up to damage 6, and just punking Teclis in the face, which is great. It could also apply to the Endrinmaster in Dirigible suit. Okay, so all of their weapons is going to double the damage as well. So that's kind of cool. I love that a lot, right? Then you got Cunning Fleetmaster, and the chat really kind of taught me around on this, because actually this is brilliant, but a little complicated, but really fun. At the end of the enemy movement phase, you can pick one friendly sky vessel within 12 inches of the general and more than 12 inches from all enemy units. That sky vessel can make a normal move. So it's kind of awkward. The stipulation is you have to be 12 inches away at the end of the enemy move phase. But it does mean that it kind of protects your sky vessel from maybe a double turn. That's the thing. So you kind of have your sky vessel far enough away, they move, they're hoping for the next turn, get closer and charge your sky vessel. Well, you've got redeploys, and then you've also got Cunning Fleetmaster as well now, which is really fun. So that means that you can move your sky vessel onto an objective, and then maybe go cap an objective, which they weren't expecting, which is kind of fun as well. Move closer towards... it's just some really good stuff, really clever. You're going to be able to utilize this quite a bit, and I quite like this quite a lot. So yeah, very, very cool. Then you've got a Scholar and an Arkanaut. You can pick one additional footnote for your army. You cannot pick a footnote your army already has. You're probably going to take the Codewright a lot, so more footnotes I don't think you need. Old Skydog, you can pick one additional Great Endrinwork. So if we take the subfaction where you can already do this, that means 3 Endrinworks. And that means if you take a battalion, you could have a 4th Endrinwork, which is crazy. And then you've got Grundstok. Like this a lot. Friendly Grundstok units have the battle line battlefield role. In addition, so this is going to be your Grundstok Gunhaulers and also your Thunderers. In addition, once per turn, this general can issue a command to a friendly Grundstok unit without command points being spent. So we already generate loads of command points anyway, but there we go. We can have more. So now we can definitely have 15 Thunderers in the sub-faction, which lets us do mortals on 6s to hit. Kind of fun. And you've got Stormcaller, which we really like in the chat. While this general is on the battlefield, you can re-roll any of the dice rolled when a friendly Aetheric Navigator reads the winds. So I guess it's time to talk about the Aetheric Navigator. So he's got 5 wounds on a 3-up armor save. Let's just double check the points. It's 85 points. So wildly cheap. Wildly cheap. And he's got the Aether Sight, which is, so 5 wounds on a 3+ save. Super cheap, love that. This model can attempt to dispel one endless spell at the start of your hero phase and attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. That's great. Okay, so loads of unbinds. And then you've got Read the Winds. In your hero phase, you can say that that one friendly unit, so the stipulation is 1, so you can't have more than 1 navigator. I mean, you can have more than 1 navigator, but only one of them can use this ability. They will read the winds, and if you do so, you roll 6 dice. Then pick one of the following effects. What's really nice about that is you roll the dice and then you can pick one of the effects, because you either do Aether Storm, which is on 1s, or you choose Favourable Conditions, which is on 6s. So, you can kind of roll the dice and you think, well, I've got 2 6s and no 1s, so I'm definitely going to choose Favourable Conditions, or you roll them again. So you might be looking to get 1s, but you might unfortunately end up with 6s. that's what the winds do. But what's cool is if you do take the Stormcaller command trait, then my god, yeah, then you can re-roll them. So if you are looking for ones and you roll 2 ones out of 6 dice, then you could roll the other 4 dice open for some more ones, which is really fun. So then you got the Aether Storm. Okay, so this is if you roll ones and then you pick one different enemy unit within 30 inches of this unit and visible to this unit. That enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If they take any mortal wounds, so obviously you could have things like ward saves to try and stop them, and they're not negated, you half the unit's move characteristic until the start. So if you roll 3 ones, you pick 3 different units. You can never pick the same unit 3 times. And then they take D3 mortal wounds. If they take any mortal wounds, half their move characteristic. So I feel like that's one people are going to want a lot. And for 85 points, it feels like an auto include in the army. 85 points to potentially shut down a few units from your enemy's army is really great. And then you've got favourable conditions, which is when you roll 6s. For each roll of a 6, you pick one for any sky vessel within 30 inches of this unit and visible to this unit. The sky vessel can make a normal move of up to D3 plus 3 inches. And this is in the hero phase. So now you're moving D3 plus 3 inches. You're potentially going to move a unit and disembark a unit, and then they can charge 3d6. Like, there's going to be a lot of combo stuff here that your army's going to be able to do. Sure, it does require you to roll some 6s for that, but already you've got some big movement shenanigans here, which is really nice, and I quite enjoy. So it's a normal move. 85 points is definitely also just worth it for the Unbind. I agree with that as well. How many command traits can you have? You can only have the 1 command trait in your army. So there we go. But yeah, really interesting set. The Cunning Fleet Master, where you can make that 12-inch move at the end of the enemy move phase. Really very interesting. I like that a lot. More Endrinworks. That's pretty great as well. The Thunderers one is interesting. The Stormcaller one is interesting. So not only have you got a good amount, you've got a variety. I really like that. I think the command traits are quite nice here. Okay, so the next one is the Artefacts of Power. So you can take multiple Artefacts of Power if you take the right battalions. Okay, so Inventions of the Skyports. First one is Master Raw Armor, and this gives an Arkanut Admiral a 5-up ward save. Yeah, well, it's fine, but there are better ones in here probably. You got the Celestium Burst Grenade, which is once per battle. At the start of your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches. On a 2+, they can't take ward saves. Again, this is very meta-dependent. There's lots of ward saves in the game at the minute. Seems pretty good for an army that wants to punch through a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I like it. You got Blazebeard and Sons, Drakhobbler Magbolers. That's a big name. Basically, it means a monster on a 2+ can only charge on 1d6. There's not enough monsters in the game, or you're not going to guarantee to play against monsters. You're probably never going to take that. Then you've got the famous spell in a bottle. You have to take an Aether Khemist, and you pick one endless spell that does not belong to a faction. So no Skaven endless spells. No Luminous Realm Lords runes. And don't forget, if you are using an endless spell with a spell in the bottle, you definitely should kit bash a Kharadron Overlords version of that endless spell, in my opinion. You can include that endless spell in your army without spending any points. So it's free. It's a free endless spell. Probably going to be the Purple Sun, because it obviously reduces people's armor save down by 1, and you've obviously got all that extra rend, which is great in your army. In addition, once per battle in your hero phase, the bearer can automatically cast a spell that summons that endless spell. Right? You don't need to make a casting roll, and it cannot be unbound. However, the Baron cannot control the endless spell. Okay? Can you take the endless spell again for points? I don't think so, no. Geminids as well is a neat option too. Geminids is an interesting option. Yeah, there's some very interesting stuff there. Someone pointed out that probably this is what you can see all the time, and that's a little bit sad, because then what you get is insular list design. But we'll see how it pans out. We'll see what Kharadron Overlords players do pop up. By the way, if you're super interested in Kharadron Overlords, I probably should say at this point, there's a podcast solely dedicated to it called the Aethercast. It's got a YouTube channel and a podcast, and I'll go check it out if you get the opportunity. They love Kharadron Overlords. They're going to be deep diving this for years, so go check that out if you're excited. The next one is Phosphorite Bomblets, Endrinmaster only. So this is on an Endrinmaster. Once per battle in your shooting phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 6 inches of the bearer and roll a dice. Nice. On a 2+, the unit suffers a mortal wound. And then you can roll another dice and keep rolling, okay, until the target is destroyed or you roll a 1. So you pick a unit within 6 inches, right, in the shooting phase. So you can run and do it, and you can get out of a boat and do it. You can do from a boat and do it. So 2+, mortal wound, 2+, mortal wound. And either they die or you roll a 1, which is just hot, okay? And that's some whimsy, okay? Already one of my favorite things. Yeah, and you do have to do the song. You're gonna rolling, rolling. You got to do a bit Limp Bizkit, okay? Well, if you don't do it while playing Limp Bizkit, legally not allowed to actually do it. So, and then you got the Voidstone Orb. Shout out to Limp Bizkit, not being problematic. I don't think that's really good. I really expected them to be problematic, but turns out Fred Durst didn't go too bad, which is okay. I really expected that from Fred Durst, but that's on me, okay? Then you got the Voidstone Orb, okay? This is on a Navigator only. Once per battle, when the bearer attempts to unbind a spell, you can say that they will use the Voidstone Orb, and you automatically unbind a spell, right? So an auto-unbind. They're all situational, granted, yeah? Feels like Spell in a Bottle really ramps up the power of the army, so probably the one you're going to see the most. No ward saves, interesting. Auto-unbind once per battle, bit lame, but could be key in the right setup. Okay, pretty good. But the Phosphorite Bomblets is the winner. 2+ mortal wound, rolling, baby. Just keep rolling. These. Okay, so the first upgrades we're going to talk about are for the Ironclads. So just to be super clear, you can't double stack an Ironclad upgrade on the same Ironclad. So you take an Ironclad, you can have one upgrade. However, if you have 2 Ironclads, you could take 2 if you use a Subfaction to get an additional 1 or a Battalion to take an additional 1. But it can never be the same one. So this is a situation. 2 Ironclads, I could take, if I've met the requirements, I could take 2 different upgrades. They can't be the same upgrade, and I can never have 2 upgrades on one boat. That should answer it. Okay, so then you've got the last word. At the end of the enemy charge phase, you can pick one enemy unit that's finished a charge move in that phase within 3 inches of this unit. That unit can shoot at the enemy unit with either a Great Sky Cannon, Great Sky Hook, or Great Volley Cannon. So that's at the end of the enemy charge phase. I'm not sure if that's even that good with Unleash Hell still in there. So whatever. Then you've got Hexen Solutions. The first wound that would be allocated to this unit, each phase is negated. That feels like that's pretty positive, especially as the Ironclad now has got additional 2 wounds. It's on 20 wounds on a 3-up save. Negating some wounds feels really good. Then you've got the Breath of Morrigan. In your shooting phase, you can pick one enemy unit and roll 1 dice for each model from that unit within 9 inches. On a 5+, they suffer a mortal wound, so a great horde clearer. Pretty decent. It's pretty good. The really good one, Deal Breaker. After this unit finishes a charge move, it's basically got an ogre charge. So whatever your charge result was, let's say you rolled a 10, you roll 10 dice on a 4-up, you take a mortal wound, which is really nice. This keys in really nicely with the ability to have a 3d6 charge once per battle, the ability to kind of retreat with the command ability. This is pretty good because this is like a load of extra damage for free, which is quite interesting. I quite like this. Then you got the Prudency Shoots. This is where the dwarfs just wear like little towels when they get out of the shower. That's what they're doing, right? Prudency Shoots. If this unit is destroyed, you don't have to roll to see if a models embarked in are slain. In addition, if this unit is destroyed, embarked units do not have to be set up more than 3 inches from one enemy units. So you could disembark the dudes straight into combat. Which is kind of fun. And then you got the Magnificent Omniscope. Add 2 inches to this unit's move characteristic, which is kind of fun because we already know that you can add an additional +2 with an article. I'm going to make sure I get that right. And then, so you could have a very, very fast Ironclad running around, making use of those command abilities, making use of the command trait to move 12 inches, making use of the Navigator ability for D3+3 move. So you could have like an Ironclad moving around a bunch, which I think is really interesting. Okay, because we've done the Endrinworks with the Ironclad, let's talk about it. It's 500 points. It's 20 wounds on a 3-up armor save, and it's got a base move of 10. You can potentially add +4 to its movement with an Endrinworks and also a Subfaction, which is decent. Okay, you get a bunch of weapons. You get the Aether Shock carbines and the Aether Shock torpedoes, and then you choose between the Sky Cannon, the Sky Hook, and the Volley Cannon. it feels like the Sky Cannon is the best choice because it's got either the choice to do a big damage, 2 shots that do D3 plus 3 damage, but they hit on 4s, but wound on 2s, and have big and Rend 2. Or you can do the Shrapnel version, which is 6 shots, 3s and 3s, Rend 1 damage 2. Then, which is kind of a little bit sad because the Iron Blaster is 10 shots, right? It's a bit of a shame. You got the Skyhook, which has got 2 shots, and they do D6 damage, and they do a flat 6 damage if they're shooting into monsters, and then they kind of do some interaction with monsters that currently I'm not too bothered about. And then you got the Great Volley Cannon, which is 18-inch range and 4d6 shots, so pretty decent. It can have 22 models in it. 22 Skyfarer models can be embarked in it. Which is an upgrade. The chat are telling me that it's an upgrade from 15, and there's no restriction. Flying Sky High no longer has a restriction, so it's just you move a unit. So 22 feels really, really good. Then you got Bulwarks of Iron. This unit counts as 5 for holding an objective, so that feels really good for KO players because this unit is not a monster. Okay, it is a war machine. It's not a monster. Okay, so it's going to count as 5. And then, yeah, and that's a shame, actually, because I guess then you don't gain any access to Monstrous Rampages, which is actually super massive. Raw is so good in a game, so really good. The Great Skyhook has got some special rules, again, discussing with monsters. The Great Sky Cannon, each time this unit shoots, you get to do the different shooting profiles. I think I prefer the Sky Cannon over everything else, in my opinion. Then you got Bomb Racks, and this is one that we've just had to talk about a lot in the chat. After this unit finishes a normal move or a run, okay, and don't forget there's the option to do a 2d6 run, you can pick one enemy unit that this unit passed across and roll a number of dice equal to the bomb rack's value shown on this unit's damage table. For each 4+, that enemy suffers a mortal wound, and it starts with 10, so you're doing 5 mortal wounds by moving across them. Which I find to be really, really interesting. We've tried to do some janky stuff with movement and using the ability to move, and even the Navigator's ability, which moves D3 plus 3. But even if you roll the 6, because you start 3 inches away, it's impossible to move it across something in the hero phase and then move back. So it doesn't feel right now like there's any shenanigans, but maybe we'll find out some shenanigans in a bit. And finally, you got the Supremacy Mine, which is once per battle. If a unit charges you, you roll a dice on a 2-up. Then whatever you roll, let's say you roll a 5, they take 5 mortal wounds. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah. So yeah, like it's 500 points. Is its output going to be worth it? It carries models inside of it. It's definitely a mobile gun platform. I don't know. Like I've always found the Ironclad. It's more survivable now. 2 wounds. It's pretty decent. Pretty decent. It's lost auto healing. So that's the thing. So, okay, I quite like that. And people are going to break down exactly the damage profiles and the right guns and all of that to do here. There's going to be some real combos here, so that's going to be fun. We're not going to cover that right now, but interesting. The big Ironclad, probably still going to make it into most armies. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is the frigates, the frigate upgrades. So we got the Karazar Farewell Scuttling Failsafe. This is basically when it dies, when a frigate dies, on a 2+, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. Every unit within 3 inches. So send a frigate in, on its last wound, it explodes everything within 3 inches on 2+, D3 mortal wounds. You got Malefic Sky Mines, once per battle at the start of the combat phase. Pick one enemy unit with that can fly, that is within 6 inches of this unit, on a 2 to 3, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, on a 4+, D6 mortal wounds. So once per battle, probably not going to take that. You've got Prudency Shoots, which is when everything gets out of the frigate and it dies. You don't have to roll any 1s for it, which is kind of fine. Someone in the chat pointed out it's really funny that they don't give any parachutes. Parachutes is an upgrade for these dwarfs. And then finally you got the Magnificent Omniscope, which adds 2 inches to the move characteristic. That's actually pretty legit, because when you look at the frigate has got way better. It's 300 points, and it's got loads better. It's got 15 wounds on a 3-up armor save, and it moves 12 inches. Okay? It's got a pretty good gun profile compared to the Ironclad, in comparison to the Ironclad, in that it's got the Heavy Sky Cannon, which has got 5 shots that damage 2, or 2 shots that damage D3 plus 2, which is pretty great. And then it's got the carbines, which again are damage 2. It can hold up to 12 models, 12 Skyfarer models, but it's got this new rule, the assault boat, which is amazing. Basically, you charge in, right, with this model, and then you roll a number of dice equal to the ramming dice speed. Unwounded, it starts at 8. Every 4+ you do a mortal wound, so you should on average do 4 mortal wounds. But then every model in the boat can disembark, and then all of them get the strike first effect applied against the enemy unit. So they have to disembark into combat, but then they get strike first. Everyone in the chat is pointing out, quite rightly, that there isn't loads of combat options necessarily, apart from a couple of admirals, maybe some Skywardens. But it's pretty cool. Charge in, do mortal wounds, pop the guys out for always strikes first, hit everything. That feels really good, especially when you can make this guy move. I think you can get a frigate up to like 16-inch move, which is pretty good. So I kind of love that. Councils 5 on an objective. Strikes first is pseudo tankiness. That's also true. If you fight first and they can't hit you, that feels very good. So don't hate that as well. You've also got, don't forget, you've also got stuff like with the Skywardens, you charge in, always strikes first, everything hits. They might not be able to hit you back. And then on a 2+, you can make them have to retreat out of combat. So we love that as well. You've got bomb racks, which you move over units, and then you do mortal wounds. And again, there's you've got 8 on these, so 8 bomb racks. So you can move over a unit, roll your 8 bomb racks, probably do 4 mortal wounds because it's 4+. Then charge a unit, do another 4 mortal wounds. That's 8 mortal wounds before you do anything else, and then always strikes first. It feels pretty legit. And then you've got heavy skyhooks, which again is if you're shooting monsters, good into monsters. I'm probably even going to take the sky cannon every time. And then you've got the sky cannon, you've got the 2 different profiles. So massive fan of the frigate. Okay, looking at the Endrinworks that you can have on the Grundstok Gunhauler. You have the Surge Injection Endrin Mark IV. When this unit makes a normal move or retreats, you can add D3 inches to that move. If you wish, you can add 2D3 inches to that move instead of D3, but if you do so, you roll a double, and this unit suffers a mortal wound after the move, so not really a big deal. You've got the Debt Settler Torpedo, which is pretty rad. Once per battle, after this unit finishes its charge move, so once you've already found out what the result of that charge move is, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll a dice. On a 2+, that enemy suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. And I think it means equal to the roll of that 2+. So the maximum you could do is a 6, which is a shame because I thought it was based off the charge value, but it's not. But it's still another D6 mortal wounds potentially. And then you've got Coalbeard's collapsible compartments. This unit gains a transport vessel up to 6 Skyfarer models. So 6 admirals in a gun hauler running around. Okay, so the gun hauler also got upgraded. It's 170 points for a gun hauler. It's got a 3+ save and it has 10 wounds. It moves 12 inches, so it's more survivable than it was. Its Aether Shot carbines got their weapon damage upgraded to damage 2. It's also got a sky cannon or a drill cannon. The drill cannon's got a better rend and is D3 damage, but it's 1 shot. Whereas if you take the shell version, it's 2 shots that do D3 + 1 or 4 shots that are damage 2. So again, a little bit of a conversation. Still feels like I quite like the idea of taking the sky cannon, but the drill cannon has got a special rule. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with the drill cannon is a 5+, the attack causes 3 mortal wounds to the target. So that might be a good version, a good reason to take it. Then you've got a head full. Once per battle at the start of your movement phase, you can say that this unit will move ahead full, and if you do so, you add 6 inches to its move characteristic. So that's really useful, especially as you've got bomb racks on this. You only roll 4 dice for these bomb racks, as opposed to 8 for the frigate and 10 for the Ironclad. While any friendly sky vessels are within 3 inches of a gun hauler, they get a 6-up ward save. So it might be worth bringing one of these along to protect the rest of your sky tanks, which is fun. And then it's got the rule for the sky cannon. So I think overall it feels like the gun hauler is better. The frigate is better. Feels like there's a good argument for taking multiple frigates versus maybe a big ironclad, especially with that assault rule. So of all of the boats, I feel like the gun hauler, the gun hauler's okay. I feel like it really feels like it's saying frigate to me at the minute. I'm not really sure. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Okay, so the leader of the faction, Brokk, is the first war scroll we're going to look at in detail. He moves 12. He's got 8 wounds and a 3-up save. Now, we talked a little bit about hitching, or people just mentioned it. He's got the Skyfarer keyword, so he can just go in a boat. So don't stress about that. He can just go in a boat. Okay, he's got Warmaster, which means he can do commands from 18 inches. He's got a mustache-mounted Aether Blaster, which is at the end of the combat phase, picks a unit within 3 inches on 2+, does D3 mortal wounds. He's also got a shooting attack, which is his boast, which is just his gun, I guess, which is 1 attack, 3s, 2s, Ren 2, D3 damage. Very good. And then he's got a Magnate's Charter, which is 6 attacks at 18 inches as well. He's got an effective range of 40 inches. 3s and 3s, Ren 1, damage 2. And he's also decent in a fight. 4 attacks, Ren 2, D3 damage. Amazing. So his profile's good. He's 220 points. He's survivable. Very good. And then he brings some real utility to the army. He's got the first rule of Grungsson. If this unit made a charge move in the same turn, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Barak-Nar Skyfarer units, which does include our Skywardens or Endrinriggers, and of course, obviously, Thunderers and Arkanaut Company, wholly within 12 inches. So +1 attack to their profile seems really legit. And then he's got Command the Fleet. Use this command ability at the start of your movement phase. Up to 3 friendly sky vessels that are more than 3 inches from all enemy units can receive this command, and it'll be wholly within 18 because he's a War Master. In that phase, you can re-roll run rolls for these units that receive a command. In addition, the units that receive command can run and still shoot and or charge. So now we're doing bombing runs from all of our sky vessels. We're shooting still, we're charging still. Mega fast army. This army is just like, now you've got an Ironclad, potentially moving 14 inches with all the right upgrades, re-rolling its run roll, running, shooting, charging, super fast. Also includes himself or admirals, correct, Jacob? So you could put Brokk in I think kind of the perfect version of this is there's an Alpha Strike list we're seeing now where you've put Brokk and 5 admirals inside a frigate. You're running and charging, you're dropping them all out, and they're all striking first. No one hates that. You could also have a 2d6 run and shoot. That's a good point from Jacob in the chat, yeah. So Brokk, really excellent. Really excellent. For 125 points, we get an Arkanut Admiral, all 5, in a frigate. Feels like that makes sense at this point. 6 wounds with 3 up armor save, but they only move 4 inches. He's got an okay shooting attack, which are 3 shots, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 2. He's also got an amazing hammer, 3 attacks, 3s, 2s, rend 2, damage 3, which is great. But he's got a load of utility for that very cheap points cost. You've got the Admiral's Flagship, which is you get to pick an Ironclad or a frigate and use a CP free on it once per turn, which is great. So even more free CP. You've got Grudgebreaker rounds, which is once per battle at the start of your shooting phase, you can pick 1 friendly Kharadron Overlords unit that is not a sky vessel. So obviously we'd like to think of something like Thunderers, but maybe something else is more efficient. Until the end of that phase, improve the rend characteristic of that unit by 1. That's pretty good, because we were feeling like there wasn't enough rend on this army, so that's really good. The same unit obviously cannot benefit from this ability more than once, so you can't stack it. But that's pretty great. Then you've got Bring Every Gun to Bear, which is a command ability, and because he is, if you make him your general, it'll be 18 inches. If he's a hero, it'll be 12 inches. At the start of your shooting phase, the unit that receives the command must be a sky vessel, so you pick a boat, and then then you get to add +1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's missile weapons if it stayed still in the previous movement phase. So, because you do this at the start of the shooting phase, the previous movement phase, they can't have moved, and it can't have used the Sky High ability either. So it can't have done either of those 2 things. But then you add +1 to the attacks profile of all of the shooting weapons. And actually, that's pretty good, because you're going to have so much CP, that just feels like a nice buff, right? Can they use the ability in the boats now? Yes, they can, because it doesn't count as a garrison. You can use this command ability at the start. And then finally, they've got Command the Skies, which is what Brokk has got, but you can only do it to 1 sky vessel. So you get to re-roll the run rolls, and you get to charge and still shoot at the same time, even if you've ran. So all in all, the Admiral's looking very great. Max Admirals in a boat sounds hilarious, especially with Always Strikes First. Being able to have a couple of Admirals giving out different buffs to different skyboats. Let's say if you took 2 frigates, feels like it makes sense to just take an Arkanut Admiral inside both of them. Gives the frigate some combat punch, and then also you get kind of like you also get +1 to all of its shooting, which feels really good as well. So I think Admiral's pretty legit. So the Endrinmaster with Endrinharness is only 90 points. He's got an okay hammer, 3 attacks, 3 threes, rend 1, damage 3. He's got 6 wounds with a 3-up save. He can heal. At the start of your hero phase, you can heal a sky vessel up to 3 wounds. It's pretty nice. And he's also got an ability where he rolls a dice, and on a 2+, he lets a transport vessel that he's embarked inside of shoot at its top profile. So, like, all in all, pretty nice. Like, healing 3 wounds a turn feels pretty good. Definitely something you're going to want in this army for a little bit more sustain. Shooting at the top bracket is very powerful. Especially as it allows you to do a bunch of different stuff. Well, it lets you just act at the top bracket, actually. So faster movement, more bombs, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, I quite like the Endrinmaster. He did lose an eye laser, apparently, but there you go. Not bad. It's very cheap, 90 points. Ladies and gentlemen, it's happened. We got the spice. We're at the Aether Khemist. Aether Khemist got 5 wounds and 4-up save, so not as survivable as some of the other characters. He's got a 3d6 shooting attack at 9 inches, which is pretty fun, at Rend 2. Now, the key part here is the Aetheric Augmentation. At the start of the shooting phase, if this unit is not embarked, so it's on the ground, you can pick 1 friendly Skyfarer's unit, but it's at the start of the shooting phase, so you could always get out and then use this. Pick 1 friendly Skyfarer's unit that's not embarked and wholly within 12 inches of this unit. Improve the Rend characteristic of that unit's missile weapons by 1 until the end of that phase. So that means that now we've already found a couple of sources of Rend. We could have Thunderers at Rend 2 straight away. Maybe Rend 3. We could do a Purple Sun for Rend 4. Now, the way it's written is you can stack it, but I very much doubt that that will maintain itself. It's very cheap. It's 80 points for the Aether Khemist. That's pretty crazy. Load of Thunderers. Now we're talking. Rend 3. This is silly. Okay, so love this. And he's got Aether's Atmospheric Isolation. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy models while they're within 3 inches for any friendly units with this ability that are not embarked. So -1 to hit. It's not really what you care about, but it's a nice little buff. Aether Khemist, Rend stacking in this army. Time to shoot the world. Next unit is our Horde Clearer, Bjorgen Thundrik. He's got a shooting attack, which again is 3d6 shots at Rend 2. But he's got an ability called Toxic Grease, which is basically you roll a dice for each model within 6 inches from an enemy unit, and on a 5+, they take a mortal wound, which is pretty good. He gets to issue a command point to his unit, Thundrik's Profiteers, who, while this unit is wholly within 3 inches of friendly Bjorgen Thundrik, he has a ward save of 4+. So there's a real potential that you could put Thundrik's Profiteers and Bjorgen Thundrik, I've definitely said that wrong, in a boat, throw them forward and start making them just spray through hordes of enemies, which is quite a fun little bit. I quite like that. I think that's fun. The unit itself costs 160 points, so I think that's pretty fun. I like that. Okay, so Drekki Flynt, the special character. He can make 1 Arkanaut Frigate, a Barak Mornar Arkanaut Frigate, let's be very specific, into the Aisling, his special ship, which is fine. He's got 6 wounds, and he's got a 3-up armor save. He's got a really good gun attack, 2d6 shots, 3 threes, Rend 1, damage 2. That's pretty nuts. He's got the Skyfarer keyword as well, so you could potentially improve the Rend of that if you wanted to. That's pretty brilliant. He's then got Grunsson's Axe, which is also good as well. 3 attacks, 3s, 2s, Rend 2, damage 2. So he's legit. And then he's got Let Me Drive. Okay, so you can reroll run rolls and charge rolls made for the Aisling. That's his special frigate. We've already done the frigate. The frigate's great. We've already done the frigate. The frigate's excellent. Then we've got the auxiliary Skyhook. Each time this unit fights, after all of its attacks have been resolved, and you can pick an enemy monster within 3 inches, and on a 2+, they suffer 3 more wounds. It's kind of fine, but who cares about monsters? But the best one is Light Fingered, because he's very much like my friend Baal from Canada. He's a bit of a light-fingered thief. At the start, very much like what we saw yesterday from Space Producing. At the start of the combat phase, if this unit is within 1 inch of an enemy hero that has an Artifact of Power, you can see that Drekki will try to borrow it. On a 3+, the Artifact of Power can no longer be used because it's been stolen. Oh my god. Oh my god. Is that light fingered for the rest of the battle or just the combat phase? At the start of the combat phase, if this unit, the rest of the battle. So, and he could do this multiple times. He can light finger a bunch of artifacts. Okay, I absolutely love this. Absolutely love this. And Drekki is only 130 points. Feels like you're putting Drekki in your army for the funsies. Yes. Okay, so the Endrinmaster with Dirigible suit has got 8 wounds with a 3-up save and is 170 points. Okay, he's got some okay shooting attacks. He's got 1 shot that does D3, 6 shots that do 1. And then he's got an Aetheric Saw, which does D3 damage. He's also got a heal, like we saw previously with the other Endrinmaster, where he can heal up to 3 wounds to a unit. So it kind of feels good, but he's obviously a lot more expensive than the Endrinmaster on foot. But he's a lot more mobile, moves 12 inches. But this is the important part. He's got, by Grunge, you have my eye on you. You get to add 1 to the field repair rolls made for friendly Endrinriggers units while they're wholly within 12 inches. What the hell are you talking about, Rob? So Endrinriggers, the other balloon boys, have got the emergency field repairs, which is once per turn, so that's every player's turn. At the end of any phase, that's any phase, okay? So your opponent shoots you, do it at the end of that phase, right? If this unit is more than 3 inches from all enemy units, you can say this unit will carry out emergency field repairs. If you do so, pick a friendly sky vessel. On a 4 to 5, you can heal a wound, and you do that for each model in the unit. So if you've got a unit of 3, you roll 3 dice. On a 4 to 5, you're going to heal 1 wound. But if you roll a 6, you heal 2. But if they're near the Endrinmaster, it's going to be on a 3 to 4, you're going to heal 1, but a 5 to 6, you're going to heal 2. And you get to roll 3 dice. And don't forget, you could obviously have a unit larger than 3. So you could be rolling 6 dice, any 5 ups, and you could potentially be rolling 9 dice. I think you can get these guys a battle line. You could be rolling 9 dice, any 5 ups are going to heal 2 wounds, right? They can be inside the boat as well, yes. They could be inside the boat and heal from the boat, okay? They also have got a great attack profile. 2 attacks, 3s, Ren 2 damage, D3. They do only have a 4-up armor save and 2 wounds, but they're very cheap, and you do have access to a 4-up rally in this army. Okay, which is really good. If the unmodified attack for the drill launcher is a 6, you also cause 3 mortal wounds as well. So that's their shooting profile. Okay, they've got a grapnel launcher which lets them teleport across the board, which is wicked. Yeah, and their skyhook is damage 3 if it's firing a monster. So if you have Brokk and these guys, you can obviously give them +1 attack to their Aetheric Saw if you want to. You could add additional rends to their attacks if you wanted to as well, in the variety of ways that we did that. Absolutely. And their battle line with Endrinrigger as a general. Okay, so you can definitely make units way more survivable. You've got way more output from the unit because they've got an extra attack on the Aetheric Saw. So Balloon Boys healing really well. The boat's way more survivable with their 3-up armor saves. Absolute nonsense. We finally got to like the nonsense part of the book, and that's great. Loads of healing, loads of output, Ren stacking, just absolutely loads of stuff here. Excellent stuff. Okay, so one of our battle line units, but not the only battle line unit available to the Kharadron Overlords, is the Arkanaut Company. They've got a 4-up armor save and 1 wound each, and pretty low bravery of 6, and they move 4 inches. So there are ways, as we know, to add to rend, maybe even add the number of attacks to the unit in combat, and they've got some okay guns. 100 points, though, on a 4-up armor save. I don't think you're necessarily going to see lots of play. They do have a lot of special rules, though. Well, not a lot, some. They've got Glory Seekers. While this unit is not embarked, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this unit that target unit contesting an objective, which is kind of good, because that's what you want them to do, is go contest an objective. But their survivability is an issue, in my opinion. And then you've got Light Skyhook. The damage characteristic of this unit is Light Skyhook. is a 3 if the target is a monster. So I think you can give them all privateer pistols, which are 2 shots each, 4s and 4s, and you can stack the rend on that pretty aggressively if you wanted to. You could take the article for +1 to wound. You could give them all-out attacks. It could be 3s and 3s, rend 1, rend 2. So you could do a lot of stuff with this. They've got a bunch of characters that can definitely buff these units, but they're buffing a unit that doesn't necessarily have that innate survivability. And they're competing in class with the Balloon Boys, and we see the Skywardens are pretty good in combat. We've seen the Endrinriggers are pretty good in combat, so they're bringing a lot of utility. So it feels like you just make the right general, and you probably go for Balloon Boys holding objectives. The ships already count as 5. So probably KO are going to have the same problem they always had, which is holding objectives, but... really great. But a bit disappointing, I think, but I don't know. Like, it looks like it's a boat army, is what I'm going to say. Just to be clear, Skywardens, just in case we missed it, because I'm doing this live, 3 of them for 130 points, can be battle line. They're a good melee unit, but you're going to have a real conversation whether or not you're going to trade the melee output for these versus the way the Endrinriggers are going to really be able to help your boat survive. So Skywardens may be missing out on that. I think is going to be quite interesting. But yeah, Skywardens are kind of your melee choice, but maybe don't have as much utility as the other unit. Okay, these are the battalions. Probably you're not going to see some of these used, like mainly because the upgrades that you get are pretty weak. You get Expert, which is once per battle. You can receive an all-out attack or all-out command for free. Basically, all of the upgrades that you get for the battalions mean that you get to use a CP free once, but you already got so many CP for this army already that you're legit good and you're in a good place. So I don't think you're going to see any of these battalions, but there are the battalions. There you go. I don't think you're going to see them. I think you'll see Battle Reg. I definitely think you'll see people trying to get more artifacts as a battalion versus this, or more upgrades is what you're going to see. Finally, the way to score points. And let me tell you, it is easy. Very, very easy. Which is good, because one of the problems Kharadron Overlords probably have is holding objectives. So maybe giving them very easy to achieve grand strategies and battle tactics means that you definitely will get your 8 points, so 5 for each battle tactic. 2 points for each battle tactic, of which there are 5 to complete in a game, and your grand strategy for 3 points at the end, so 8 points. So then they just have to battle over trying to hold the primary, which is more of a problem for them. So, like, there you go. Easy as fug is the correct, a lot of fug here. So you've got Masters of the High Airs, and then there's probably 2 that you're going to do. You've got Rule of the Skies. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there are 1 or more friendly sky vessels on the battlefield, and there are no enemy behemoths that can fly. So you already do this if they don't have any monsters that can fly, or behemoths, that can fly, and then your boat lives. You've got another one which is Guided by the Code, which I think is the other one, and probably the one you'll see all the time, which is when the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if you completed at least 4 battle tactics, and every battle tactic you chose was a Kharadron Overlords battle tactic. And the reason you'll pick that is because these are wildly easy. The first one is destroy an enemy unit with the Bomb Racks ability. Okay? So, like, if someone's got a wound left, boom. You got Mobilize the Fleet, which is get three units inside of Sky Vessel units that weren't previously in it. You got another one, which is Boots on the Ground, which is get 3 units out of boats. Again, your opponent can't interact with any of this. You got Opening Salvo. You could only pick this battle if no units have been destroyed in the battle so far. However, if in the shooting phase you then kill an enemy unit, so it'll be like a first turn one that you maybe try and do, then boom, you achieve that battle tactic. You got Blast Them Smithereens. Pick 1 objective on the battlefield within 12 inches of any enemy units. You complete this battle tactic if there are no enemy units within 12 inches of that objective, which for an army that's very mobile and can do lots of shooting, that's very good. And then finally you got Stake a Claim. You can pick this tactic only if you control fewer objectives, and then you complete this tactic if you control more objectives than your opponent at the end of this turn. So again, that's like, it's your turn. You're going to be active. So, like, I would say 8 points on the board for KO every game. I feel the wholly within enemy territory is what makes it harder to do boots on the ground. Sure, I guess that's true. You do have to be wholly within enemy territory to do it. Yeah, that is true. But they're very easy to achieve. And that's it. That's the Kharadron Overlords book in total. which is good. It was very nice of the team. I'm proud to say I was part of the team, the Twitch chat, who bought you this review. Okay, this is an early access review. Like as in, I didn't get early access. Sorry, this is an early review before the NDA people got the review. It's the first time I read it live on stream today with the chat. So there's still loads of things to break down. Weapon profiles, combos, all sorts of stuff that's very exciting and very thrilling to look at. Obviously, haven't had the time to do that as we've been reading it through. Thank you to Monkey X for donating 5 gift subs in the chat. But it's been a really fun time, and I've really enjoyed it. It's looking like it's a much better book. Looking like it's going to be very easy for them to achieve their battle tactics. It looks like they're going to have some very outputty units and very mobile. Looks like there's also a load of mechanics and tricks. It's a cleaner book, a neater book, a more well put together book. Makes a little bit more sense. It's not as complicated. Doesn't have all the Aether Quartz stuff and everything. So overall, pretty fun. If I was a Kharadron Overlords player, I'd be pretty happy. So thanks for watching this. If you are watching this on YouTube or listening to it as a podcast, then please do like and subscribe. And I do have a Patreon if you ever want to join and support the show, because that would be ace. And there we go. Hope you had a great time. Thank you to the Twitch chat for making this super fun. Love you loads.